All right, I wanted to give a quick update on the build I've been playing, which is a magic finding Ignite Reflect Chieftain using the new so-called ghosting or ghostbusting strategy for magic finding. It's kind of new this patch. Credit where credit's due. I didn't make this build. Dudeabides on YouTube made this build and put out a guide for it. I made just a couple little minor tweaks. So I will put a link to his YouTube in the description. And also credit to Snoopy85 for kind of the Atlas strategy and figuring out how to optimize this whole ghost busting thing, which we'll talk about. I'll give a link to him as well. He's really awesome for learning about magic finding in PoE. So, a couple disclaimers before I start talking about this. First is the purpose of this build. It is not a league starter. It is not a hardcore build. You can't do bosses on it. You can't really do deli-orbed maps. You can't do things like Sanctum or Toda really well at all, or if at all. So what can you do? Well, it's for one specific purpose really, and that purpose will make you a lot of currency. It is a setup for, on a reasonable budget, doing heavy magic finding and divination card farming with this new strategy called Ghostbusting. So the cost to get this going is about 45 divines minimum. I looked up all the prices of kind of the gear that I have with a couple starter pieces replacing some of my luxury items. As of September 20th, it was about 45 divines, plus the cost of leveling a character to 96, which is from going from 70 to 96 in 5 ways, because you're not really going to be able to level on your own with this, is about 12 divines. So all told, to get things going, probably like 60 divines or so. So how does this build work? The key here, you'll notice like pretty much everything here is magic finding gear except my mage blood, which I farmed using this strategy. Farmed all 5 apothecaries on my own. So it does work. I got it in 200 maps, which is quite lucky. Based on my drop rate, it should have been more like 350 maps. So I got kind of lucky there. So it's all magic finding except the mage blood, and the only thing that's not dedicated magic finding gear is the fulcrum. The stats on it don't matter. The only thing that matters on it is the mod that says elemental ailments you inflict are reflected to you. So you want to inflict ignites because they'll get reflected back to you, and chieftains are unaffected by ignite. So it's still placed on you, but you don't actually get hurt by it. Then combined with this small cluster, Fan the Flames, you spread those ignites constantly to enemies within a 1.5 meter radius. So it's basically like a scuffed version of Righteous Fire almost, but you don't have all the requirements that you need to make Righteous Fire work, which allows you to use magic finding gear. Just put these back in before I forget. So how do we get the big ignites on people? The way to do this is this new Chieftain node, Hinakora Death's Fury, 5% chance to explode, which deals 500% of a monster's maximum life as fire damage. So when you explode a monster into other monsters, it'll apply a huge ignite on them, and that will get reflected back to you, and it'll tick down on you, and you'll be proliferating that to other monsters around you. So 5% is pretty low, so we need, first we need a way to actually kill mobs. We just do that with Fire Trap, just because it kind of scales with the other things that we're scaling, like fire damage, burning damage, damage over time stuff. Then we get a much smaller explosion, but we stack the chance to get the explosions kind of rolling with these tattoos of the Nagamahu Warmonger. I think I have about a 20% chance or so total to explode, and then eventually you'll get the big explosion, get the big ignite, and keep rolling. One other important thing is duration, both ignite duration and skill duration in general. Reason is, once you get this big ignite on something, you want it to last as long as possible. So you stack some skill duration and ignite duration as well. So that's pretty much it for the build offensively. For defenses, there's a couple interesting notes here. Modifiers to max fire res apply to max cold and lightning res, and fire res applies to cold and lightning res at 50% of its value. So you want as much max fire res as you can. Good way to get this is the Warrior's Tail Jewel combined with these Nagamahu Makanga tattoos. That'll get you 8% max fire res if you put it over here and get these particular nodes. You also take Purity of Fire, which will, where is it? There we go. Purity of Fire, which gives you 5% by default, and if it's level 23, as it is here, which is level 21 plus a +2 AoE gems on your gloves. And I think you can get that to 6% with some aura effect as well. And then there's a couple other max fire res nodes. I think it's just this guy that gets you that last point. You can also get it with this Molten One's Mark small clusters, but you really want to use your small cluster slots for these jewels if possible. Unstoppable. This is super nice since it makes it so you can't be stunned and can't be frozen or chilled because your action speed and move speed can't be modified to below base value. Let's put those back in before I forget. Other defense that you get the Red Nightmare combined with a bunch of fire res tattoos. That will get you capped attack block, as you can see here, along with these staff nodes and the 20% from your staff that gets you capped. And as you see, we have 90% all elemental reses and a bunch of overcapped res, which is nice for this regen 1 life per second for each 1% uncapped fire res. So, the other jewels real quick before we move on to the gear. So, Elegant Hubris, there's a few specific seeds that you can use Timeless Jewel Finder to search for. There's one in POB, but you really want one that has Chaos Res and this way to get endurance charges if you've been hit, because we have 5 max endurance charges and can even get up to like 7 or so. So there's a few seeds. You want Caspero so you can get Supreme Ostentation, which lets you ignore attribute requirements. As you can see, my attributes are very low. And of course, a Watcher's Eye converts, when using Period of Fire, fizz damage from hits to fire at 10%. I also have some move speed with Grace, but that's kind of optional and makes it more expensive. Also got this one Honor Tattoo of the Mountain for 1 more max fire res. Okay, so the gear. Obviously the Fulcrum Staff we talked about. In your weapon swap, you want a Replica Mist Wall to give you, when you're running around doing the ghosting thing, it gives you capped spell block damage and also makes sure you have phasing up all the time and lets you avoid some damage from hits while phasing. Phasing is one good thing to talk about. You should have 100% uptime. Lets you run through monsters, which you're going to be doing a lot. I'll show you that later when I get to the map description, or mapping display, I should say. It also gives you a ton of uptime on Immortal Call. So, other gear. Helmet, by default, you can use Fairgraves' Tricorn. That gives you shock immunity. Lets you get touched by Tormented Spirits, which gives you a attack, cast speed, movement, and damage buff. 50% to all those increased, which is kind of nice. And that lasts the entire map if you don't die every time you get touched by a ghost. I, however, use a rarity helmet, which just gives me a ton of rarity, some max life, and reservation efficiency, which allows me to get Grace, which is another defensive layer. I don't have a ton of evasion rating, only 8,000 more with all Grace up, but it's certainly helpful. Default belt is Bisco's Leash, which is just rarity, and Rampage, which makes you go fast, as well as some quant. Get a good corruption on it, since the strength on it won't matter for you. Super duper duper luxury version, of course, is Mage Blood. Not necessary at all, but it is nice anytime you can use it for a ton of move speed, rarity. I use it for Chaos Res and Curse immunity, and Shock immunity, and some evasion. Other flasks you can use are Taste of Hate, which gives you a bunch more physical mitigation by converting it to cold. And Cinder Swallow gives you some damage and regen and recovery, but one weird thing is you do actually count as an enemy for the purpose of this flask, so you take 10% increased damage as well while it's on. I stopped using this, even though it is kind of nice for recovery. And lastly is the Cloak of Flame, which gives you a ton of physical damage taken as fire damage, and a lot of increased ignite duration to keep that big ignite on you. So the gear you'll always be using, no matter whether you're using these different items or not. Sedeema's Touch, again, for the quant, and you want the +2 AoE corruption. It's not really expensive at all. Venter's Gambles, you want as high quant and as high rarity as you can, and whatever level of resists you need and can afford. Goldworn, classic magic binding boots, get a max quant roll. You can, if you should actually try to get a corruption on it. I've just been too lazy to get it. Something like max endurance charges or move speed or max life, and that will run up the cost quite a bit. Bisco's Collar, reason for this is so you get a ton of quant on normal enemies and a ton of rarity on magic enemies. Normal and magic enemies are the types of enemies that you can touch while you're ghosted, so it gives a huge extra bonus to that. And let's see, did I miss anything? I use Agreed's Embrace. Again, you can use a Cloak of Flame if you want. You'll die more with Agreed's Embrace, but you do get the extra quantum rarity, which is quite nice. I think that's everything as far as gear goes. Let's make sure I didn't miss anything here. I don't think so. We talked about the jewels, we talked about the flasks, we talked about all the gear, how it works. So let's talk about the actual magic finding ghost busting strategy thing. So look at the atlas here. This ghost busting thing came about because of this new node called Speaker of the Dead, where instead of possessing rare or unique monsters, tormented spirits possess you instead. It gives you an attack, cast, move, speed, and damage buff per ghost on you, and also lets you touch monsters. So why would we want to do that? The reason for that is these nodes, which gives a huge quant bonus to possessed or touched monsters in your maps. So every monster you touch has a 120% increased quantity on it. The rest of the atlas setup is it's a wandering path setup, so you want to take the full top hat of nodes, as it's called, to get the increased effect, which on maps, which does make the maps harder, but it increases the quant and rarity and pack size as well. Take Eldritch Eater of Worlds altars, and everything else, of course, anything that synergizes with strong boxes, because strong boxes is kind of the meta way to find divination cards. The rest is all pretty much just to get as many monsters on the map as possible. So Expedition is just to get more monsters on. You don't really care about the rewards from any of these league mechanics. You just want to get monsters on as much as possible. What else have we got here? So yeah, just Expedition chance. Strong boxes, convert them into the nicer ones, make them openable again. Of course, the quant wheel, quant rarity wheel, more Expedition chance, Harbies, just so you can travel to the middle here. get some ritual chance, and you get like pretty much all the Beyond small nodes. Beyond is awesome because there's a new keystone here, which makes bosses not spawn. Now, normally if you are just wanting to farm tainted currency, you'd want the bosses because they have guaranteed tainted currency drops. But when the bosses spawn, they get rid of all the Beyond mobs on the map. So this keystone makes bosses unable to spawn, and which means you can have all those extra mobs and make sure you maximize the amount of mobs you get from that or Beyond. The other thing is we take all the little way gate things and take the 7th gate because that unlocks ambush on the map device. So I think that's everything with the Atlas tree. The juice we're using is 8 mod Crimson Temple maps. I'll put a list of map mods you want to avoid in the description, but it's pretty much the ones that mess up your life recovery. Can't think of the others off the top of my head. Let's check the description of those. You can use any level of scarabs you can afford. I'm trying out Winged Divination and Winged Torment scarabs. That has made a huge noticeable increase in the amount of divination cards I get. I go with Gilded Reliquary and Ambush. And then the Beyond Sextant to guarantee Beyond on maps. If you have Beyond on your maps, which I do on a few on this set, you can use a Magic Pack size Sextant instead. Strongbox and Rage, it's like the classic meta div card farming thing. Gives a huge want bonus to monsters and strongboxes. Deli Mirror. Now the reason for the Deli Mirror is we don't care about delirium rewards really, although they're nice. They give a quant and rarity bonus to the naturally spawned monsters in the map. So that's the main reason for having that there. And then lastly, just the Corrupted Rare Strongbox Compass that gives us a couple extra strong boxes. You can use the elevated versions of any of these if you want. The most impactful is probably going to be the extra strong box, I would think. The other one, obviously, is quite expensive for not huge extra returns compared to spending money on Winged Sextants instead, which is a really noticeable increase. So yeah, the idea is kind of just the way that magic finding works in general is you have the area quantity and rarity, which is like when you look in a map, you see here it's like 117.65. That'll obviously get increased when I get in the map. So whatever you see when you do tab, that gets multiplied by the quant and rarity on your gear. And then another multiplier is that delirium bonus that we talked about, which again only spawns applies to naturally spawned monsters. All right, so let's put this stuff away. Finally show a map, and I'll show you kind of just the full like Ghostbusting strategy. So let me make sure everything's in order here. So yeah, we have a 8 mod Crimson Temple map, decent quantity and rarity and pack size. We have the Divination Scarab, Torment, Ambush, and Reliquary. We have the Sextants applied. We have Ambush and Eater of Worlds. I'm also going to just burn some of my master missions that are not Alva. The reason for that is when you add all these tormented spirits to the map, some of them can and pretty much always do spawn inside the incursions, and you have to kill the monsters in there, otherwise you kind of waste the incursions and waste the ghosts inside as well. So it kind of screws up the strategy a little bit. You can do it, but it's a huge pain in the ass, so I'd rather just burn eco missions because I don't care about them. Eventually I'll have to just not do that, but that's a problem for the future. As you can see, I have 81 missions. So yeah, let's open up the map. And remember, I will die. It's just a fact of life with this build. These maps are crazy, as you'll see, and I'm running around not killing things for a very long time. And as you know, offense is the best defense. So, very first thing we're gonna do once we get in, and do it before we get in actually, is just swap to our weapon swap. So we have the replica mist wallet, and we're gonna basically run around holding phase run. And if we happen to run into a ghost, then we'll ghost the mobs. It's very important that you do not hit the delirium mirror yet. Reason for that is it often it breaks two things really. It makes the ghosts stop moving and they won't possess you. It also sometimes, I don't really know why it happens, but it breaks eldritch altars from actually spawning. So it's kind of strange. So we're gonna go kill the map boss, kill a few packs nearby, both to get a big ignite rolling and to pop the eldritch influence, which you'll see with the big blue explosion. Then killing the map boss takes the boss mods out of the altars, since we don't really want the boss mods. We want the player mods, or the eldritch ones if we get the big money ones like divine orbs or exalted orbs or gilded scarabs. Other than that, on the player mods, we want the quantum rarity where possible. So it's going to look like this. We run to the boss, kill some packs, kill the boss. Then we're going to wait for ignite to fall off so we don't kill stuff. We will run around ghosting as many mobs as we can. And we will pop all the influence altars so they don't get screwed up by the delirium. Once we've done pretty much all the ghosts and all the altars, I'm sorry, the influence packs, not the altars yet. Then we'll get the deli mirror, and then we'll start killing everything. So let's check this out in action, and hopefully it all goes well. So we got two ghosts right away. We do want to grab them, otherwise they might expire. You see when they kind of dive down, that means they possess you. And you see the green smoke I'm putting on these things, which means I am touching them and giving them that huge quant bonus. So if we happen to run into ghosts, which we've run into 4 of the 13 or so already, we'll touch them just so we don't lose them, because they do kind of run away. They have a timer where they kind of run away after you run into them. And I think we've gotten 7 already, so we may just end up running into most of them. Yep, here's 9. And it's no big deal. We actually want to... This helps us guarantee that we apply the touching to the natural mobs on the map, rather than like eldritch mobs. Alright, so we're going to run around here just for safety for a bit, and once we're in a clear spot, switch, kill some packs, get an ignite rolling. See that blue explosion? That means the influence is popped. Kill the boss. We're gonna wait for our ignite to run out so we don't kill anything else. And then we're gonna run around and spawn all of the influence mobs and finish ghosting mobs. So we're gonna just hit as much of the map as possible without killing stuff, holding phase run down the whole time. If you get into a pickle, you can pop your health potion, you can use Enduring Cry, you can hit Val Grace if you need to. Although you really have one shot on that until you start killing things. So you see all those blue lightning bolts from the sky is the altars, or the Eldritch Influence mob spawning. Here's another ghost. Let him dive into us. And just kind of cover as much of the map as possible, making sure we spawn all that stuff, making sure we get all the ghosts. Don't even worry about the league mechanics. There's one more ghost. Now sometimes they don't dive in you. The reason for that is, well, they're a little finicky sometimes, but also you can't have 2 of the same types of ghosts on you at the same time. So if that happens, just run away from that one and go find another one and come back to it. And if you run out of mobs to touch, you can touch strong box, or you can open strong boxes and touch those mobs instead. Alright, so I counted 12 ghosts, which is the minimum that we can have guaranteed. So time to pop the deli mirror and actually start killing everything. So I run around, kill stuff, get the altars. I try just hit Volgrace whenever you can. Go for quantity here. Oh boy, we got smashed. Again, that's just gonna happen. Especially when we get that fizz reduction altar. But no big deal. Just get right back on the horse. We just kind of want to sweep the map, popping altars, killing monsters while we're underneath the fog. Again, we're just kind of auto-bombing everything with this Ignite on us. Don't have to get everything underneath the fog. We're not going to be able to. We're not a big crazy projectile build that's going to be able to hit everything, so don't worry about it. Just get as much as you can. Hit Fall Grace when you remember to. Currency sucks, so we'll get the Divination dupe. Hopefully get a good Divination card. And dupe it. We'll come back to that altar. Fog's running out, which is totally fine. Makes us less likely to die. Although, before I speak too soon. I can see the quant button under there. There we go. So we can continue to run around just killing all the naturally spawned mobs on the map. Get as many altars as we can. Again, we want to maximize that quant and divination card dupe chance. And if we get any divine orb altars, all the better. One little more side-to-side sweep here. Probably got most things. Ah, there's a Pagonis. Alright, I popped the breach by accident, so I'm just going to go ahead and kill all that stuff. And we're going to go back to the start of the map because sometimes there are some altar monsters hanging out there. And once we kind of do a quick little check, we're going to start opening all the strong boxes because we've gotten most of the altars. And now we have maxed out that quant, which you see quant rarity here, which we'll use to apply to the strong box monsters. So kill stuff. Hopefully that big ignite gets rolling. Ritual, I don't even bother doing the actual rituals. It's just there to add more monsters to the map. Because I think they count as natural map monsters. So yeah, it's not like a super speed clearing map. It's not gonna win awards for clearing the most maps as fast as possible or anything. Super speed clearing build, I should say, but it's for the cost especially. It's like quite tanky. It's does enough damage to clear the maps and lets you do the Ghostbusting strategy, which is kind of why I'm playing it. You see the gambler cards there. The reason why we take those, even though those kind of suck, is that you can use that to track your expected apothecary drop rate. Alright, so start looting stuff. Still plenty of the map left to do, but try to at least pick up a little stuff while we're on the way instead of doing it all at the end. I do need to make my loot filter a little tighter, because I end up spending too much time in these maps, really. See lots of leather belts and heavy belts dropping. One day, it's gonna be the Headhunter Mage Blood. I promise. I don't promise. It's very unlikely, but it might be. Gold rings, obviously you're looking for Venter's Gambles, just to gamble on. You can keep those and 3-to-1 them for better, just to have more rolls on them. More attempts at getting a decent one. If you run into a pickle and need monsters to kill, you can pop a ritual. You can also use Val Breach to get some ignites rolling again. Otherwise, you're primarily looking at the strong launch monsters to keep your streak alive. Because it invariably is going to fall off once you run around and loot stuff. Because unlike a projectile build like Tornado Shot, for example, you can't just start your DPS back up at will. You need some monsters to kill to explode onto. Alright, let's do Expedition real quick. Pro tip, if you didn't know, you can check this little box here. You just don't want anything immune to fire damage or ignite. Everything else is fine. Throw some fire traps down, get that ignite going. Get owned. Just fine. Take a moment to put our loot away. I'm terrible at looting things quickly. It's that boomer APM. Whoa. Yeah, the Beyond mobs are kind of scary. So are Delirium mobs. You can see how tough it is to kill monsters with just Fire Trap alone. It doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. This expedition is going to be a little tough to crack. So we'll just make sure we looted everything else before we just go try and finish it off. Went over here. Alright, we're going in. And again, we're not so concerned about the expedition rewards as much as just having a bunch of monsters to kill. that will hopefully drop divination cards. It's alright, there's 5 monsters just chilling. Usually when we get to the point of just like single monsters sitting around, they're just obnoxious rares, and I don't necessarily have the patience to go chase down a single monster. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. As I showed, like, yeah, you're gonna die sometimes. It just happens. Level up in 5 ways, because you're not gonna level up naturally with this build. But, it does give you a really good kind of magic finding, ghost busting thing on a relatively small budget compared to other magic finding builds. So, as you can see here, let's take a look real quick. So we've done, I set up this entire tab, so we've done 24 maps. I'll check PoE stack real quick, which unfortunately you can't see, just to see how many gamblers we got. So gambler, as you can see, a lot of them. Another thing you'll note is I pick up certain items to corrupt, just gamble on, mainly Sadima's Touch, Golden Plates, which are Grease and Brace, and Gold Worms, which is basically the items that I'm wearing. If they have max quantity rolls, you can corrupt them, try and get a good corruption. For example, I corrupted a Sadima's Touch to have Curse on Hit, Despair, and that was like 12 Divines. If they aren't max quantity, you can 3-1 them and save them and turn them in. So according to PoE stack, I have 481 gamblers, so in 24 maps, that's essentially 20 gamblers per map. You can use the site mapsofexile.com, and because the relative drop weight of divination cards is well known, if I get a 20 gambler per map drop rate, I should on average get an apothecary every 34 maps. And lo and behold, I got one in the first 24 maps, which is nice. I think that happened on map number 22. So I have a couple 7 years bad lucks as well, 5 of them. Enlightened, have three of them. Have a couple Voidborn Reliquary keys. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments. Thanks for watching.